Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Grant, and this is C&M Glass. This is just a quick video to go over some of the letters written to you from former students in 2030. These letters are meant to be your first day or week tips and tricks on how to be successful. These will also be posted in the Student Resources folder available in your course online so that you can read these at any time for some of the tips, tricks, and suggestions from former students like yourself. Let's read two of them together. So our first one says here, Dear HIT 2030 students. Well, when I took this class, I bought the book as well as the online code. I found that I retained more information by reading and doing my own highlight rather than reading along online. So this student used Connect and purchased both physical book as well as the online. Okay. The reading review questions are great to continually refresh yourself on knowledge. It is a great tool to utilize throughout the whole semester to keep the information fresh. I also utilized both the CPT and HCPCS books as well as 3M. So she used both code books and 3M. Sometimes you can get a code in 3M, but find a more specific one when you reference the book. I felt more confident in the workbook assignments when doing this because when I would do the other assignments, I would do the same. And this is how I learned that 3M doesn't always give you the most accurate code because maybe there was a better selection to choose from in the list of options, but perhaps you didn't select it. So I'm going to say here, always double check. And I can explain to you from my point of view as your instructor, I fully agree with this statement. As new coders, you often don't know the exact path it takes in order to find a specific code. 3M is a great tool and it helps us with identifying those paths, identifying the thought process that we need in order to find correct codes and to make sure that our coding is accurate. Sometimes 3M can be a lot easier than your CPT or HCPCS books. Other times though, the CPT and HCPCS books are much more direct and easier for us to follow than the 3M. And it tends to change with each person. So for that reason, I would fully agree with this student. And in fact, you'll see many times in your assignments where I've given you guys options to use the code books or 3M or sometimes both. Going back to your letter here, she does say she feels more confident in workbook assignments. We read that. The course is content heavy, so try to do a little each day so you aren't overwhelmed by the end of the week. Trying to get things done and don't skip videos that have great material in them. So break out your week. Do a little each day. This may not always be an option for everybody, but it is definitely a great suggestion. And if you can do a little each day, even if it's just throwing a video on your way to work, if you have the option to put it on so where you can hear it, please don't watch videos while you're driving. It can also help to reiterate information you may have already watched, maybe learning, maybe listening to. And because we have so many videos, both lectures as well as other really good resources, it can help a lot to hear things repetitively. Now going back to our letter here, most importantly, don't be afraid to ask questions. Sincerely, a previous HIT 2030 student. I would definitely agree. I think that's some great advice. And just in case you aren't sure, there's never a wrong question to ask. But if you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. Or the answer is always nothing because you didn't ask. So Keep that in mind. I never mind questions. Sometimes the emails can be a little busy, and it can take up to 2 business days for me to get back to you. But I will do my best, and that's why I always recommend starting off a little bit in the beginning of the week, just as our student gave us recommendation here. We'll go ahead and read one more letter, and then I'll put the rest of these letters available to you in your Student Resources tab so you can look at some of the things that other students have said. So, this student here broke down some of the questions that are listed in the discussion module to list the letter for you. And she says, how would you have structured your weeks differently? I would recommend having a part-time job and not a full-time job. Make a schedule if applicable with your work and your study time and what is priority to you. This will help you out on your time and what you need to focus on. Make study groups that you know will be reliable and that all of you can work together with each other. So I'm trying to reword that a little. But let me go ahead and pause there. Plan your schedule. Make study groups. This is very important because it will help on the assignment to see any errors and the coding that you can discuss and differences you see would be the best way to code them. Okay, so she's saying basically if you get in a study group, you guys can share codes. What did you come up with for number 2? Oh, I had this one. Well, what's the difference there? Let's look at it. And you can really identify the differences in coding and find the best answers and understand the differences in what your answer is and why it may not always be the best. Do the course clinic with Ms. Grant. This helps out tremendously. Ms. Grant helps out those who are willing to ask for help and want to ask questions when students are lost. So she's talking about our coding clinic. And the coding clinic is available every Tuesday with a couple of exceptions from 5:30 to 7. And this is available in a group setting and it's completely directed by you. So if you come to a coding clinic and you have questions on your homework or questions on exam questions that you've already taken or you want to take for the second time and you don't know why you had it wrong, this is what we go over. We'll go over the books, we'll look at the codes. Any question pertaining to coding clinic, to coding in coding clinic can be asked. Any question about our class, really it's student directed. So that means that you get to say what you'd like to study that week. And it's completely open, which means you don't have to be there at a specific time just because that's when we're there. I will be there the entire time to help students like yourselves at any time if you can make it. I also offer one-on-one sessions either by phone or online using our Skype options so that we can make sure to share information for students who can't come in at that time or are not local. Now, the next question in the letter says, were there specific things you changed midpoint in the semester that you wish you had done from the beginning? And this student said, yes, it was practicing some frequently used prefixes and suffixes, such as ectomy, meaning the surgical removal, aspero, meaning removal, desis, meaning surgical fixation fusion, etc. This will help with terminology. Practice the anatomy parts as well throughout the course, since parts of the anatomy are used to create the terminology. This will make it easier to comprehend some of the terms and what they mean. Okay, so practice medical terminology. I see some of these suggestions come up a lot. And what I can say with the medical terminology is that every time I have somebody say, I don't know how to find this code, we'll look at a code and one of the first things I say is, do we know what this word means? And if you don't, the first thing you should do is look that up. Even if you think you know what it means and you're reading through it, the difference often in the right code and the wrong code can be the understanding of the terms that are used. And so anytime you run into a word you're unfamiliar with, this is your opportunity to take that moment and look it up. If you don't look it up, you won't be able to find the correct code because you won't be able to determine the difference between the two codes and which one is more appropriate. The last thing our student gives us in this letter says, in response to the question, maybe you had a perfect term and didn't need to make adjustments this term. How did you do it? She said, no, not by any means was this a perfect term. I do wish the future students great endeavors. The best I may say is to focus, study hard, and may you succeed in this course. So focus and study hard. I think this falls along the lines of some of the other advice that she's giving us, like planning our schedule, making groups together where you can discuss your coding, where you're working on understanding concepts, not just applying them. And keep in mind that you can always ask me questions if you have any issues, if you're stuck on anything, or just don't understand a code. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm always here to help. That's it for our letter reading for 2030, first day or week, tips and tricks. But you'll find the rest of these in the medical students reference folder where you can look at what other students have said that have helped them with their success and where they're going. Good luck to you all, and we'll talk to you soon.